Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bad Ideas Garage. Although we're not at the Bad Ideas Garage, we're at my garage. What we're going to do in this space is we're going to make some shorter videos, either some historic projects that never quite came to be, or some smaller projects that we're doing right now that don't quite have enough material for a full video. So today's video, we're going to be talking about a W210 E55 AMG, a 1999. This car has quite the history, like many cars in the Bad Ideas Garage. And so today's video, we're going to be talking about this AMG sedan and what ended up happening to it. So how we came into possession of this E55 was I was selling a set of Mercedes seats on Facebook Marketplace, and I got to know this guy, Anthony. Anthony seemed like a really cool dude. He owns a gym up in the Portland area, and he daily drives a Toyota FJ. Yes, he daily drives an FJ. Take a look at these pictures. He daily drives this. And he bought this AMG to be a stopgap while he was doing some upgrades to the FJ to get it prepared to be doing some more daily driving. And so we were chit-chatting, and then after we got to know each other a little bit, he said, hey, you know what? I need to get a couple things done on my web page. You're a web developer, and yes, I'm a web developer. That's what I do for my business. Do you think we could do a trade? And I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. I like weird cars. I can do stuff on the internet, and you want to promote your gym? Sure, that sounds like lots of fun. Let's go ahead and do it. And so we made a swap. So after Anthony said, hey, the car is ready to go, then I was like, well, I have a bit of a problem. At my house at that time, we had 7 cars. And I do have a great relationship with my wife, and I wanted to maintain that. And I knew a couple things about the AMG before going into the deal. I knew that it had an interesting title history. The car has a Vermont plate on it because there's what's called a Vermont loophole where you don't need a title to register a car in the state of Vermont. So that's where the car was registered. I knew that I was going to have to deal with that. I also knew the car had been in some accidents and had no odometer. Yes, there's no odometer on this vehicle. I had a friend of mine run the Carfax. Take a look at it. It's got some very interesting history to it. And so Anthony showed me a video of the odometer. It just shows a blank square. So I knew that this car had a little bit of interesting things that were going on with it. And so at this time, and even to this day, I already have a Mercedes that has a title issue, although that is getting fixed at the end of this month. I have all of the paperwork. I have the lien paperwork for it. So yes, I will be the legal owner in about 15 weeks from now of the E320 wagon that I talked about in my other video. Take a look at that here. So when Anthony said it was ready for me to take the car, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't really bring this car home. So I went to my buddy, Andrew. Andrew from the Auto Informant. Take a look at the link in the description below. I started asking him questions like, okay, like how realistic is this car to restore? How much do you think it's worth? You know, things like that. And it's, I mean, I know that it runs well. Anthony told me it runs well. It definitely runs well. But the rest of the car, it's like, oh, it's been in a bunch of accidents. You know, the body lines are not straight whatsoever. And he's just like, hey, why don't I buy it? So rather than me explaining what happened with this car, I'm going to let Andrew explain it. Here we go.
Hey, Steven, thanks for that intro. My name is Andrew Owen with the Auto Informant on YouTube and also known as PNW210 on Instagram. I am a huge W210 fanatic. I have an addiction with it. This is a yard ornament. My wife is not very pleased about this, but we're not here to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the mystery that lies behind this E55 and my plans with this E55. So, basically, I own a 1998 E320 wagon, which is the same chassis as this car. It's a wagon form, and it has a V6 and it's all-wheel drive. Cool car. I got a blue leather interior, which I'll show you here in a second, but I've always wanted to do an AMG swap with it. I've talked about it, but I've never really had the resources or the time or the money, all these things, right, that it takes to do a swap. But Steven contacted me and he basically sent me pictures of this car, and I was like, man, I recognize that car. And sure enough, it's a car that I've seen for sale on Craigslist before, but it had the wrong bumpers and the wrong taillights, and it was just kind of a weird car. It was a salvage title, so I wasn't really interested in it, so I just sort of passed it by. But anyway, Steven messages me, you know, like a month ago, and he's like, hey, look at this car I picked up. And I was like, oh, that's neat. Like, what are your plans with it? And he's basically saying like, oh, I'm going to try and get this title for it and then sell it. And I was like, well, how much do you want for it? So anyway, we ended up negotiating. I told him I'll take care of the title and make it my problem. So anyway, enough of rambling about that story. Let's talk about the mystery that lies behind this E55. So the W210 aficionados will immediately notice that this thing is A, missing the AMG bumper, and B, has the wrong trunk lid because the 99 AMGs didn't have this IR blaster hole here. But anyway, it is missing the AMG rear bumper and the front bumper, which means it's been, I think, rear-ended and then it was pushed into another car because it's also missing the headlights that came with the car. That's my theory. I don't know the full story, but that would make the most sense to me. So the outside of the car really isn't great. I mean, it's, you know, the paint here is like really rough. Like it's been really poorly painted. It had model blocks that were in okay shape. I ended up selling those wheels to sort of make up the cost of the car. And the interior was decent. I ended up actually selling the front seats to somebody, and I told them, like, hey, these seats aren't like in the super like most excellent shape, but they're like, listen, the seats in my 350,000 mile E55, yes, that's correct. He said they were so shot, and yeah, these are actually out of the car. They look okay, but the bolsters here are just so bad. It's so uneven. It's really uncomfortable. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll sell you the seats, and if you want to give me these, then that's cool. I can at least move the car around still. I was planning on using the steering wheel, but the rubber came apart, so I wasn't able to use this for anything. Although the AMG gauge cluster is still good, so I'm super stoked about that. We're going to be using that in the swap. There's some miscellaneous trim that I've taken out because I think I'm going to use it in my car, but I haven't decided yet. But yeah, this is the state of the interior right now. I have just kind of a storage pile going on in here, and I'm also using it as an experiment to see how things come apart. So when I do it to my car, I know what I'm doing and I don't break as many clips. Let's talk about the more important part of this story, and that is the engine. So this is the M113 5.4 liter V8 tuned by AMG. So this engine was designed by Mercedes. It's about 346 horsepower and about 398 pound-feet of torque, mated to their legendary 5-speed 7226 bulletproof transmission. So this car is awesome. A lot of people love these cars because they're so reliable, they're so easy to maintain, and these W210s are like Legos. I mean, I'm literally, because I have this whole parts car, I'm pretty much going to be able to rip everything out of this and then bolt it into my wagon, and it's pretty much going to work. I mean, there's obviously a lot of little things that need to happen. The ECU needs to be programmed and things like that. That's another story. But yeah, essentially, I should be able to just swap everything over, and that's why I wanted a whole parts car. That way I didn't have to fiddle with buying all the loose stuff that I didn't have and yada, yada, yada. You get the point. So anyway, this is the E55. And now I'm going to show you the wagon that it's going into because it's pretty cool. The wagon is actually cooler than the E55. All right, so short story about the wagon. I found this thing out of Duval, Washington. It's about 3 hours away from me. The reason why I bought this car is because my wife needed something. She likes all-wheel drive. She likes having, she wanted an SUV, but I convinced her to get a wagon. So let's unlock it. And as you can see, it is blue. This is azurite blue. It's a pretty rare color on the W210, but the coolest part, frickin' blue interior everywhere in this thing. Blue steering wheel, blue seats, blue center console. I mean, it is just as blue as it gets, other than the headliner. But this is a really rare specification for a W210 in the United States. Not only that, but this car has the multi-contour seats, which basically gives you side bolster adjustment and lumbar adjustment. Pretty rare option. We've got parking sensors, another really rare option to have in the United States. So there's a little screen here and then a little screen here for the parking sensors. It also has heated seats and it has xenon headlights. It's pretty much fully loaded. It doesn't have the rain sensing windshield wipers, which was another option. But yeah, let's look at the engine bay here in case we're curious about that. Basically the wagons in the United States, they only did the 6-cylinder in these. I think there were some diesels, but for the most part they were the 3.2 liter V6, and then that's all we got. So there she is. Obviously 2 fewer cylinders than in the AMG and a lot less horsepower too. So some of you also might be wondering, well, is this all-wheel drive? And if it is, how do you plan on dealing with that? Well, yes, it is all-wheel drive, and I think this is all in theory. I'm going to be able to take the subframe out, bolt the rear-wheel drive version of the subframe up, and then I need to re-weld the spring purchase because they're slightly different, and that should work. I've talked to a couple other people about the engine electronics. It's pretty simple. The all-wheel drive system in this basically runs on ABS, so we should be fine there. I don't anticipate any problems with that. But yeah, it should be a pretty straightforward swap, and I'm really excited about doing this, and I'm super thankful that Steven reached out to me about the car, the E55, because that's going to make my life a whole lot easier. So there you go. I hope you guys enjoy this little tidbit. And if you want to follow the progress on the AMG swap into my wagon here, the Auto Informant is the YouTube channel, and then PNW210 is the Instagram. Thanks, Steven. Talk to you later, man.
Alrighty, so that is another episode of the Bad Ideas Garage. Again, we're going to be using this space for some shorter videos about some projects that didn't quite come to fruition. I'm very excited to see what Andrew does with the rest of the parts car. You can see it's in a little bit of sad shape right now. I'm very excited to see his all-wheel drive W210 AMG wagon. I'm very excited to see that. I'm going to say excited one more time. Excited because I'm very excited. Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you like this video, make sure and like and subscribe below, and we'll see you soon. Bye.